I am pleased to announce that my book, Ethics, is available for purchase in audio form. This work is the most clear and concise, and also the most comprehensive treatment of the discipline of analytic ethics in existence. Please enjoy the following promotional excerpt from the audiobook itself, professionally narrated by Theo Holland and available at audible.com.
Obviously, there are fierce and also unending disputes in ethics. Is abortion moral? Was it moral of the United States to go into Iraq? Is corporal punishment moral? These questions may be debated for centuries to come. But there are many moral matters concerning which there isn't serious dispute. Is it morally okay to torture babies for the sheer fun of it? No. Is it morally obligatory to give all of one's money to charity? No. Is it praiseworthy, that is, morally excellent, to give much of one's money to charity when there is no practical incentive to do so? Yes. These questions may seem trivial, but if so, that's precisely because it is so clear how they are to be answered. The illustration that there is no moral argument, when in fact such agreement is less the exception than the rule, is that an ethical issue isn't worth discussing anymore if there is universal agreement about it. For this reason, the only ethical issues that are worth discussing are the ones that haven't been solved, giving rise to the misleading appearance that there is no ethical agreement. 15.4. Discussion of 4. Nonetheless, I wouldn't go so far as to deny that there is more disagreement in ethics than in other disciplines. Nor would I deny that the basis of the disagreement is deeper. But, so far as that is true, it isn't because there are no ethical facts. It is because, in ethical discussions, people often shy away from making it 100% clear what, precisely, they are arguing for. When we were discussing 1, we saw that if it is possible to cite reasons for or against a viewpoint, then that viewpoint, if correct, has an objective basis. If you know that Smith murdered Jones, then you are able to provide reasons why I should believe you. Maybe you can show me video footage of Smith doing the deed. Maybe you can remind me of how often Smith fumed about Jones. Maybe you can show me legal documents that make it clear that Smith stood to make a lot of money if Jones died. By this reasoning, if the merits of ethical positions can be rationally disputed, then it is probable that ethical positions, when correct, have an objective basis. So can ethical positions be rationally debated? Can one cite reasons for and against them? Yes. We saw this a moment ago when discussing marriage. Here is another example. Is the death penalty right or wrong? People disagree about this, but even among those who disagree, there is considerable debate as to what would have to hold in order for the death penalty to be justified. So, for example, if it were made clear that the death penalty systematically led to the execution of innocent people, then most people would agree that the death penalty was not right. The question, how many innocent people are executed for crimes they didn't commit, is a strictly factual question. And a lot of the debate over the ethical integrity of death penalty depends on how this strictly factual question is answered. Suppose it turned out that the death penalty made governments less likely to invest in social policies that would prevent the commission of capital offenses in the first place. In that case, the vast majority of people who now support the death penalty as justified would probably cease to do so. Of course, there would be a few holdouts, but that doesn't mean anything. There are still people who think the earth is flat. It is a strictly factual question of whether the death penalty inhibits, encourages, or is neutral with respect to the implementation of policies that discourage the commission of murder and other capital offenses. So, as before, we see that to the extent that it's hard to decide whether the death penalty is good or bad, that's because certain purely factual issues are hard to decide. For example, it's hard to know exactly what sociological effects the death penalty has. So the seemingly unending nature of this ethical debate has to do not with there being no fact of the matter, but with there being relevant facts that aren't yet in evidence. Another example. It's fiercely debated whether abortion is moral or immoral. But notice that the debate often turns on questions of fact. Does the fetus have a mind? Can it feel pain? Does it, at some level, feel an attachment to its mother, and would it consequently feel an extreme sense of betrayal were it to find out that it was in the process of being aborted? These are factual questions about the fetus's psychological state, or lack thereof. And I think that many, though probably not all, pro-choicers, were they to find that fetuses clearly had minds, would change their position. By the same token, many pro-lifers would change their minds were they to find out that fetuses clearly had no minds at all and were not otherwise comparable to bona fide human beings. When pro-lifers are asked to defend their view, they do so by citing supposed evidence that aborted fetuses have minds and, in particular, can feel both emotional and physical pain during the act of abortion. And when pro-choicers are asked to defend their position, they cite supposed evidence that fetuses don't have the neural wherewithal to have minds. So, while there is no denying that the debate over the merits of abortion has a more incessant and also bitter quality than debates about the structure of the hydrogen atom, much of the debate over abortion, and possibly all of it, does seem to turn on strictly factual questions. 16.0. What are ethical truths? We just saw that ethical contentions often have a heavy, albeit implicit, factual component. This suggests that ethical assertions are factual assertions, albeit disguised ones. This view has been taken. According to one version of it, which is known as utilitarianism, good things are those that bring about happiness, and bad things are those that diminish happiness. Not the happiness of any one person, but the happiness of everybody. So a utilitarian would say universal health care is morally good if it increases happiness, morally bad if it decreases it, and morally neutral if it does neither. Utilitarianism cannot be entirely off the mark. Nothing good would make everyone miserable. Nothing bad would make everyone happy. The fact that utilitarianism is correct, if only to this modest extent, supports our analysis of the nature of ethical truth. The question, does X make people happier, unhappier, or neither, is a strictly factual question. Whether Smith is happy or not has nothing to do with my opinion or anyone else's. It doesn't even have to do with Smith's opinion. His opinion is more likely to be accurate than other people's, but if it's correct, that's because it's rooted in the relevant facts. The question, how happy is so-and-so, if at all, is a strictly factual question, and ethical judgments are not a matter of opinion if utilitarianism is correct. According to another viewpoint, for something to be good is for it to be identical with, or logically required by, a practice on which human flourishing depends. By human flourishing is meant the actualization of human abilities. So, according to the view in question, if you have an innate talent for writing fiction, then you are flourishing insofar as you are putting that talent to use, and failing to flourish insofar as you are not. It's a question of fact whether so-and-so is putting his innate musical ability to good use. Given any creature and any inborn ability on its part, it's a question of fact to what extent, if any, it's using that ability. And it's a question of fact to what extent a given act on your part or anybody else's promotes or thwarts the expression of inborn ability. So if the just described moral view is correct, moral questions are factual questions. Is X good is identical with the question, does X promote or thwart the development of people's abilities?